Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com, and this is video number 3 in our exploration of creating an application with ExpressJS. Okay, and the reason again, is you'll notice that I'll let errors show up because the idea is a lot of the errors that I may be running through are going to be errors that you run through. So the idea is to show you not only how to create this application, but also to learn how to troubleshoot and kind of have an idea what you want to be looking for when you see certain errors. So I want you to kind of see the whole process, the whole development process. So we last left off, we created our to-do schema. Again, let's delete all these comments, get that out of the way. Cool. Now that we got that all out of the way, what we need to do is create a controller. Okay, so the controller is actually going to sit there and say, hey, this is the URL for creating a to-do, for deleting a to-do, etc. So we have a to-do template over here. We're going to create two. So we're going to duplicate. I'm going to create a to-do control for the to-dos. And I want to create a user duplicate a user control for the users. Okay, and we'll build these out. Okay, I mean, again, there's a template in there, so that way life's a little bit easier. Okay, but before we do that, we want to just kind of set up the boilerplate in our server.js or our index.js. So if we go to index.js, always be careful about clicking on package lock because it always takes a while to load. Okay, so let's go up here to where our controllers is. Let's take the boilerplate one, uncomment it out. And what we're going to do is want to create two of these because we're going to be bringing in two controllers. I'll name the first one the user controller. Or actually keep it camel case. So I'll just do this, user controller. And then this one will be the to-do controller. Now basically we're pulling it from the file over here, which is in our controllers folder, and the name of the file is, in this case, user control.js, and this one's called to-do control.js. So we're going to pull in from those controller files and say, hey, that's going to be included in this application. Oh, didn't want to go there. There we go. Then we're going to scroll down to our middleware, and then we're going to uncomment out our controller boilerplate that we had there. And we're going to make two of those. And we're going to say that, hey, if anyone goes to any URL that has the user directory in it, that's going to refer to the user controller that we defined up top. And it's basically going to say, hey, this URL has /user in it, so we're going to send it to this user controller, and then this file over here, user control, will define how it gets handled. And then here, same thing, /to-do, and to-do controller. Boop, to-do controller. And there you go. So now those controllers are all configured and set up. So we can hit save on those. Now it's going to error, that might error out just because we have some configuration to do in the actual controller files. But let's walk through the first one. So let's handle user control first. Okay. So what we want to do, you see here it says data. Okay. That's referring to what model you're using. Since we're using the user model, what we're going to want to do is just do, depending on what, find a replace all will make life a lot easier here. So anywhere we see the word data in all uppercase, I want to replace with the word user. Okay, so that way it just kind of handles it for me. Ta-da, there. Because basically what we're doing here is we're saying, hey, the schema, which again, this is going to be in models, and the name of the file is users.js, so I need to change that to users.js. It's going to bring that in and then use that schema in these routes. Okay. Cool. And generally you have several different routes that you set up for kind of any model. There's always just like an index route, which basically gets you all the existing information, so that way you can display it on like an index page that shows you all the different users if you wanted, which you probably won't need for users, but it exists. So if you did a get request to index, you'd get all the user information. That route exists. We're probably not going to need it at the moment. Okay. So what we're going to do, unless you're creating like an admin panel who would see all the users, but we're not going to do that now. So I'm going to comment out that route for now. Yeah, let's comment out that route for now. This route is going to be for creating a new user. So basically we have two routes here. You have a get request. This sends you to a page, new.ejs, where you can create, which will set up with a form to create a new user. Okay, and again, if you deleted that tab title variable from your head.ejs earlier, then you can just remove this. So I'm going to do that. Okay, but it's just going to send it to that new.ejs file. Then they'll be able to fill out a form on that file, which will then make a post request here to create a new user. And this just basically takes the information that they submitted, because again, when you do a route, you always have you have the route URL, which is this. So essentially this is the user route. So technically, since we defined that all the user routes are going to start with user, this would be like user/index. Okay, we'll probably make that just slash. We don't need user/index, just user is fine. Okay, and then there's always two objects, request and response. So the request represents everything that the user who is making the request is sending in. The response just represents what you're going to respond with, and different functions you can use for responding with. Okay, so that's your request and response object. Typically, convention is to say res. It's easier than writing request and response, but you can name the parameters anything you want. You could call them Bob and Susie if you wanted. But then you got to make sure that then if you called res Bob instead of res, this would have to say bob.redirect. So just, and the reason I'm pointing that out, even though the boilerplate's all there, in case you type something wrong, you know where the possible errors might be. Because again, these are referring to these parameters. Cool. So basically what this says is saying, hey, the user schema we're going to create, so we're going to connect to the database and create a new item in that database based on the request body. So what happens when they submit the form, the contents of the form will be submitted as part of the request body. So the request has this body variable inside of it that has all the information that was submitted. And we're going to submit that in there. And again, there might be a lot more information in the request body, but it's only going to filter out the stuff that matches the schema and put that in the database. If it works, a new user is created. If it fails, there's an error, and then you can make it do something afterwards. All this does is send you back to /index, but we're going to say slash. Okay, and we'll come back and configure all that. So we'll save. Okay, and then this should just be /new. Because again, this file is assuming that user is already part of the URL. So we don't want to make the URL super long and have them to type in user/index/new. That's just too much typing for the user. Cool. So that's how that route reads. Okay, and then the show route. This is going to be a route where you can go get a specific user if you want to look at them. Again, we're not going to be having users go up and bring up their information, but we'll have this route here just in case. But just to walk through it, it's a GET request. Let's get rid of this /index. Now, when you have something like this, this is a parameter. So basically, someone can actually type something in the URL. So basically, they might type in like user/5, and that 5 would be treated as a variable. Okay, a variable called index of. Because the intention here is that every user has an index number in the database, and we're going to put that index number in the URL so that way we can pull them up in the database. So basically what this says is that we're going to go into the user database, and we're going to find a user using their ID number, which is going to be hopefully have been in the URL and passed through as a parameter. And any of these like URL parameters are accessed through the request object. So it would be like part of the request. There's a part of the request called params, which all those parameters from the URL are stored. and this one is specifically called index of, because that's what we defined it as. Okay, so we're saying, hey, find the user with that ID, and then again you have you have your error or your found data if it successfully finds the data, and again you can name those anything you want, but again semantic makes it easier to read. And then we're just saying, hey, you know what? Send them to this page. Send this data to that template so that way you can display it on that screen. I'm going to get rid of the tab title. I don't need that. You can send in any data you want. So basically what I'm saying here is that a variable called data for the template is going to be really the information that we just found, that found data that was passed through when we successfully requested the object. Okay, and then delete route. This is for you so you can delete a user. We're not going to be really deleting users, but it works pretty much the same way. So again, it's just delete. Let's get rid of the slash index. So it'll just be user slash the ID number, making a delete request. Let's get rid of that, make that just slash. It'll just return them to the root for now. And then this is if you wanted to edit a user. So basically you'd say, hey, index, then there'd be the ID of the user, and then you do another p slash edit, and then that's how the URL goes. Oh, it has to, because it basically what Express is doing is seeing if there's an exact match for the URL, like if some sort of any of the routes whose like permutation makes sense. We want to get rid of the slash index because we already have slash users, so that'd be a little long. Get rid of the tab title. Cool, and here we have find ID and update. This is the this is a two-parter. So this takes you to the page where you go fill in the fields to edit your data, and then once you edit that data in a form, it'll submit it and then use this to actually edit the user. Okay, but since this is specifically a user, okay, there's a couple extra pieces we want. I do have those extra pieces in the index.js where I have my user routes. So I'm going to want to copy these over. So this whole section called user routes, we're going to copy that over to your user controller. Cut that out so your index.js just got a lot simpler. Copy that over to user control. Copy that below, and then we'll clean it up. Okay, we'll walk through these. These were built specifically for the purposes of like logging in and logging out. Okay, so let's save that there for a moment. Okay, yeah, so we do have a root route there, so I make sure I commented that one out over here. Yep, that's fine. That's all fine. Okay. So we have a couple different routes here. This is just the main route. We can get rid of this one. Let's just sort of like take you to the main page. We'll make a new one. And here, now notice that all these use app.get instead of like router.put, router.get. The reason is because that we copied it over from the index.js. So what we need to do is now match it in this file, because in this file our routers are using the variable router. So everywhere we saw app before down here, we need to change that to router. So always make sure that you know what the variable name for your router is in the particular file you're working in. Router, because it doesn't magically know what you call things in your other files. Router, router. Okay, slash new user.ejs. So that's going to take you to that file, new user.ejs, which we have over here. Again, all the actual like EJS files, which are basically HTML files with templates, are going to be in here. So that's for saying new user. That's this file right here. So you would go there and make any. This should be fine as it is. Yep. The only thing is you'd have to make sure you change the URL. So let's go take a look at the controller again. User controller, this is to /new. But since it's in the user controller, it's not just /new anymore. So I have to go back to my new user and change it to /user/new. Why is that the case? Because again, if we go back to our index.js, all these user routes from our user controller start with a /user because we defined it here. We're saying, hey, only use the user controller for routes that start with /user. So when we're here in the user controller, it's assuming that /user is already before this /new. Okay. So let me see if we created any errors. Yeah, we're kind of in an error state right now. Cannot find modules controller user control.js. Did I type it wrong? User control.js controllers. Oh, the folders with a capital C. Case sensitive. So let me go back and edit that. Should be up here. Controllers. Save. Okay, cannot find module. Models, because models is also uppercase over here, so I need to go back to my controller and change this to models. Save. And then to our to-do one, change it to models. Save. Again, case sensitive, so you gotta be careful. These are the kind of things you gotta look for. So again, we just keep looking at the errors that tell us the things we need to fix. Cannot find module schema.js. Shouldn't be asking for that, so let's find out where it's asking for that. One of these. Oh, that's right, because we didn't do this one yet. So this is going to be to-do.js. And let's change all the words data to do in this file. We'll come back to this one. So that way it's all good. So that way it's to do find, and that made life a lot easier. Cool. String reference error, string is not defined. To do.js. Oh, that's in the model. I know why, because string, the type string has to be uppercase. So when you say number, string, int, all that stuff, that's got to be uppercase too. So see, case matters. And there we go. Now we are connected. So let's try going to that /new page. So let's go to localhost 5000. Again, we haven't really changed any how the pages look like, but it should be /user/new. We have to look up new AJS in the views directory. Okay, do we even have a file called new.ejs? Oh, that's why. It's asking for a file that doesn't exist in our views folder. Okay, so we would need to create a new.ejs. But to make life easier, oh, actually I can just change it to new user. So let's go back to the user controller. User controller. I want to do the, here are my user routes. /new. Why is it sending? Oh, because I have a conflicting route over here, don't I? Yeah. Basically, what happens, it reads the file top to bottom. So since this one says /new, and then this one down here says /new, it's going to read the other one first and sends it there. Okay, so keep that in mind. If you have route, it looks for the first route that kind of meets its qualifications. So I don't need this route because I have those other routes that we created earlier, or that we brought in earlier from the index.ejs. So actually, I'm just going to comment out both of those because I have create routes over here for new users. So let me save that. Okay. Now let me refresh. Okay, failed to look up view show.ejs in the directory. That shouldn't happen, but I have an idea why. Because technically, what happens is that since new is below, this is just asking for an ID as the next parameter. So new could be treated as a variable. So I need to make sure that my new route is above this. But really, I don't need any of these routes. All the routes I'm going to really need for users are right here. So I'm going to comment out all this for now. Just don't need it at the moment. I won't need it for this application. All I need is really those core user routes at the moment. So I'm going to hit save. And now we should be good. So now, if it's looking for /new, well, the very first one that's going to pop up is /new because all the other ones have been commented out. Okay, and there we go. So there's our page. We can create a user. Okay. Now let's see here. Do I have a console log? Just so that we can see that we did correctly create it? Yes. No, yep. Okay, so basically what's going to happen is that it's going to console log the created user in our terminal once we create it. So let's just see if that's the case. So if I say test, and I'm going to create a test, create user, it's going to error out because the next page isn't, oh, bcrypt is not defined. That's right. We need to define bcrypt in there. Bcrypt is what encrypts the password. So before since I had those routes in index.js, I already had bcrypt right over here, but I just need to pull that line again. Don't need to get rid of it, just need to copy it from there and put it in my user controller. So that way that file has access to bcrypt. Save. Okay. And on that note, if we go back to index.ejs, there's another thing in there, index.ejs. I want to make sure we address. Where's my session middleware? Okay, I'll have to bring that in. We'll worry about that in a moment. Let's see where we're at. Okay, it's running. Let's go back to here. Let's refresh, or go back to the previous page. User new, refresh. We're going to create a new user called test. The password name test. Users is not defined. Okay, so make sure we imported our model correctly. Oh, it's looking for users. Because these models were already defined. So let's be consistent. Or I can just do this. Anywhere that says users, change that to users. So that way they all match. Yay for replace all. Cool. And again, always be careful. I want to just go be careful when you use replace all. You never know what you're replacing, so do double check. I just know what this code says and does, so I know that that's going to be fine. Okay, so that. Let's go back. And that's a lot of error fixing is just making sure that all your variables oftentimes are uniform and are properly cased. Then real sort of logic errors after a while. Test. And success. It took us to another page. Again, the other pages aren't really defined yet. But if we go back to our terminal, we see successfully that it created the new user. We can see that, hey, new username test, password test is what we passed in. That's what we passed in into the form. But then bcrypt encrypts the password into this jumbled up number over here because we want to protect the user information. So if someone were to hack into our database, they're not going to see that the person's password is test. They're just going to see this series of numbers, and they're not going to know how to decrypt it because they don't have the encryption key. So it'll take them forever to run some sort of hacking algorithm, longer than anyone's lifespan. So the password is secure, okay? And then that's what bcrypt does. Now, for some reason, bcrypt ever gives you an issue when you're trying to deploy the Heroku. You can replace it with bcrypt.js. It's literally the exact same library. Editing your code to literally is just adding JS at the end of bcrypt, and it'll work. If you run into that problem. If you don't, then don't worry about it. Okay. So that's what this route just did. So just to walk you in through what we just did, is that we ran when we went to user/new, it ran this GET request, took us to that new user page, which was defined in new user.ejs. When we submitted the form, it made a post request to the /new route for users. We console logged the request body, which is right over here. That's where you saw username test, password test. Okay. And then it encrypted it, so be #sync rec body password, and then the 10 here is just like how high a level you encrypted it. 10 is fine. No reason to change that. Okay. So then it encrypts the password and changes it, and then it creates the user. So that's why inside the user you only see this string, because it's already been encrypted before we actually created the user over here. And then we console log the created user so that we can confirm that we created it correctly, which is right here. Okay, and then we're going to send you back to the root route, which right now really doesn't go anywhere. Okay, because there is no root route defined at the moment. But we might as well stick it in the index file. So let's copy this one for a moment. Go back to index.ejs. And we might as well just have a root route here at the bottom, just in case people do want to go to the root. Where it'll go, we'll figure it out later. We'll leave it at new user.ejs for now. Okay. So make a GET request for root, and this is definitely the root because it's not in one of our controllers. It's here in our index file. So it's literally just /. Anything else I want to do before we wrap up this video? I think this video has kind of ran long enough, and you've kind of picked up on the idea. If you want to start looking at some of your other routes, we'll keep progressing on this in the next video. I'll see you guys later on.